My name again is Ron Douglas. I'm at Texas A&M University. The title of this discussion is IBL Future, or Future of IBL. As it's been discussed more than a few times, this is perhaps, I think it's the 18th meeting of the Legacy Conference. When this started back, I guess, as Mike Starbird told us yesterday, when this started, the goal was to get together and convene and to sort of commemorate and remember R.L. Moore and his legacy. After the meeting occurred for several years, about 10 years ago, they decided a much better, well, in addition to doing that, what one might want to do is to try to enhance or perpetuate his legacy, at least as far as inquiry-based learning is concerned. So a rather large project was set up in motion, trying to put in place a program to support the development and the dissemination and the use of IBL at universities and colleges across the United States. And what we're going to do here is we're going to talk a little bit about an update as to where we are and perhaps a little bit of comments about kind of where we're going. Now, the first thing that was done for this was the Educational Advancement Foundation established centers in trying to develop and disseminate IBL at 4 research universities: the University of Chicago, the University of Michigan, the University of California, Santa Barbara, and the University of Texas at Austin. These have been in place about 10 years, and I'm going to ask them, representatives from at least 3 of these, to tell you a little bit about what's perhaps the most distinguished feature, or what they're either over the past year or the coming year, and in particular with an emphasis on how what they're doing might impact you and what you're trying to do. Following that, about almost 5 years ago now, we set in motion an assessment and evaluation project. As has been discussed at this meeting more than a few times, one of the challenges we have in the use of inquiry-based learning in our universities and colleges is our colleagues, our students, and often the parents and other people are skeptical about the results of it and whether or not it's effective. So one of the advantages of having these centers at the 4 research universities is we had in place programs of substantial size and longevity that we could use them to do assessment and evaluation. Sandra Larson and her group at the University of Colorado, in fact, has done this and has published several papers and results from their studies. I'm happy to report, as I think essentially everybody here believes, that IBL is a very effective method of using in the teaching of mathematics. By now, given that research and given the research of other people, the question as to whether it's more effective than the lecture method is more or less settled, at least as far as the research is concerned. Whether or not we can translate that research into effective support for IBL yet remains to be seen. The other thing that we've done over the last, I guess, about 3 years is put in place something called ABLE, the Academy for Inquiry-Based Learning. I will ask Stan Yoshinobu to tell you a little bit about what the status of that and where that's going in a few minutes also. So let me start with John Bowler at the University of Chicago.
Thank you, Ron. My name is John Bowler, and I'm here to talk a little bit about what's been going on at the University of Chicago, and in particular, the way I see our use of IBL expanding and changing, and also beyond Chicago a little bit. So let me, I don't want to repeat, we had a nice session yesterday where we talked about some of the activities that are going on at the centers, and I don't want to repeat myself too much for those of you who were in the audience yesterday. But in case you weren't, I just want to say that, of course, our bread and butter is the undergraduate courses. That's what we've really focused our IBL attention on. We've got a very nicely running program teaching honors calculus to talented first-year students. We have courses in number theory, basic geometry. We've developed, there have been a few one-time offerings, courses in topics in algebra and things like that. I think in terms of what's new there, It's not so much, well, it's the whole package. It's the continued expansion of what it is that we're doing there, right? I've said it before, but we started out with one course, and then it was 2, and then it was 3, and then it was 4, and the enthusiasm that I get from the students who want to take these courses, the reason we expand is because there's student demand for these things. We don't yet have plans to offer a 5th section, but there's easily space for that to happen, right? And then, okay, well, that's the students, but what about the faculty? Well, every year we're getting inquiry from faculty, our own faculty, because it's got enough of a sort of a groundswell of what's going on there that our junior faculty are like, hey, who gets to teach those IBL courses? That seems really cool. And there's this buzz on campus about what's going on, especially with the honors calculus. So I find that extremely exciting. I mean, not only it seems is the first derivative positive, but the second derivative is too, in terms of the growth. Of course, part of this is we continue to develop the script, too. We think of this as an ongoing process. You've seen lots of scripts. Stan will talk about all the materials that are available on the I can't say it right. I want to say AIBL instead of ABLE, but the AIBL website, or in the lobby, or elsewhere, right, from colleagues and so on. And I've been particularly poor about sharing things, not in the intentional sense. I want to, but then I just don't. So my stuff is still coming, Stan, I promise. But the problem, I think, is that we never think that these scripts are done, right? We're revising them year after year after year, and the number of people who've been involved in revising them has continued to grow. We've got 10 graduate students. We had a team just this year of 4 graduate students and 2 faculty who put together new linear algebra scripts. And Harry rightly asked me, it's like, well, but what about the linear algebra scripts that are out there? And I said, yeah, but they don't quite fit our purpose in a sense. And so we've continued to work because of the particular population of students that we have and the particular goals that they have in terms of their next courses and things like that. So we kind of started again. But the idea that we were easily able to get a team of 6 people to work together to create a script that had not yet been implemented was just sort of fantastic. This coming year, Bob Pfefferman, who is taking over as our Director of Undergraduate Studies, plans to do a Fourier analysis course this way, and I'm going to work with him on developing a Fourier analysis script. So that's new, right? We're offering new courses in these methods. But I think maybe in a different direction, and I'm not sure how much time I have here. I'll take my second point to be the development of personnel. I've said this kind of thought before, but we're producing new graduate students who have IBL training. We're producing postdocs who have then been trained by us to offer IBL courses when they go on to their next positions. But every year, it's new people. We're getting at least 2 new postdocs every single year. Agnes Baudry and Sebastian Hensel sort of tapped into what this thing we have going on and said, hey, we want to do that at honors calculus next year. So absolutely, and we're going to pair them up with experienced practitioners and get them trained up in how to do these IBL courses, at least in our style. Ours is a pretty pure, Bob was calling it a classical music kind of style. It's not so much the improv style, not a jazz style of IBL. It's, we've got very rigorous scripts, axioms, definitions, theorems, students presenting their own stuff with no comment. It's not exactly small group work. It's pretty old school, close to the Moore method. But it works very well for our students. And like I said, I think the most important message I have right now in this little report is the enthusiasm of everybody at every level, the students, the faculty, and so on. And frankly, the department. I think that's a point worth making, that every year we also have new senior faculty, our permanent faculty who are joining in. Bob Pfefferman has not taught an IBL course before, but he's like, well, okay, if this is part of what we do, then I'm gonna do it too. And this is the way, of course he's a Fourier analyst, so that's the way he's going to do it, but he wants to buy in. Dennis Hirschfeld, who's a logician, nevertheless, is going to teach one of our undergraduate geometry courses from scripts that we've already developed, but he's bought in. He's going to do a course this way. We've got a number of senior faculty who are part of this, so that's very exciting. But then I think the third thing I wanted to finish with is the outreach. One thing that maybe I didn't put enough emphasis on yesterday is a lot of the outreach programs that we have at Chicago. We do work with in-service teachers, we do work with pre-service teachers, we do work with students from the south side of Chicago. And each of these continues to grow too. The Sesame program has been around for a long time, and it's always had sort of an IBL component. That's an in-service teacher program, but now it's got an offshoot program, which is the Woodlawn Project, where we're working with the Woodlawn community just to the south of us. We're in Hyde Park on the south side of Chicago. The neighborhood Woodlawn to the south is a less well-off community, but they've got an organization together. They train up their teachers, and I'll be teaching the first course for their teachers this summer using IBL methods. So it might not be a full-on scripted course the way we do the undergraduate courses, but that's a new program where we're doing IBL. We've developed the pre-service teacher training in our Chicago UTEP program. And those courses now, the 5 courses for the secondary level, are all offered in the IBL style. And 2 of the several courses that the elementary level take are also done in the IBL style. And then finally, there's the Wyatt Young Scholars Program. So this is what's probably the one that was nearest and dearest to Paul Sally's heart. He and Diane Herman started the Young Scholars Program back in 1988, and there was always the small group work component where we have talented undergraduate students working with reasonably talented Chicago public school students from the community. The counselors would do small group work with them, and then they would come back in, but the other parts were kind of lecture-based, and well, that's no longer the case. And just in the last couple of years, Arnie Lulavicius has done a topology course, one topology course and one knot theory course in pretty pure students at the board the whole time, even during the quote-unquote lecture part. It's not the lecture part anymore. I mean, it's the IBL part. Paul Sally did his own that way. I'm doing one that way this summer. So that's continued to grow as well. So maybe this isn't going too far. It's not reaching out necessarily to the other higher institutions, but I feel like we're having that kind of an impact going beyond at least our campus within our city, within our community, by working with these teachers from Chicago Public Schools, by working with these students from Chicago Public Schools, and just by continuing to grow what it is that we do. So I think, yeah, my takeaway is that I'm observing more and more enthusiasm on all people's parts, and I'm observing just simple growth in all of the programs, not just our bread and butter of the undergraduate program, but everything else that we do with the outreach too. So, thanks, Ron.
Thank you very much, John. One of the things you might notice from what he's described is in establishing these centers, one is asking the question, what would a university look like, or what would a math department look like if, in fact, there was a commitment to the development and dissemination of IBL within your department? What you heard from John about Chicago, but you'll also hear from the others, is what it meant was a growing number of courses, a number growing of faculty, a growing number of graduate students involved with it, who will, in fact, help spread the method across the country. The next speaker will be Ralph Spazio from the University of Michigan.
Well, good morning. Some of the things I'm going to say are very similar to what we just heard from both Ron and John. So we've been doing this, we've been involved in this for about 10 years, and I was just reflecting. What did we do? Well, put our sleeves up, installed some courses, trained some people, more about that a little later. Okay, I think we have a pretty good program by now. Self-sustaining, it's continuing. So that's great. A couple of years ago, we developed, after people at Texas already had some summer IBL courses, workshops for people interested in IBL. We did some more IBL workshops from the centers. Well, that's a great thing, and I very much hope it will continue this can I call it tradition? So this tradition hopefully will be a future. So what's next? I mean, so of course more courses, all these things are happening, hopefully. So, but also this, I think one of the things is that in some sense maybe the centers are going to be, as John also said, they're going to be more involved in reaching out to their local communities and maybe their national community. And so one of the things that is happening very concretely next year, over the next year or so at Michigan, is that we'll be having a math circle for teachers, and with an emphasis on IBL techniques. And Nina White, who's sitting here in the audience, is going to be in charge of it. She's developing it. So we're in the first round of application, or whatever you want to call it, for the math circles. So, there's a year of setting it up, and then we actually start working on it. There's buy-in from, I believe, the Wayne County school system, and that's excellent. And it's going to be, as I said, Nina White and Stephen DeBacher who are going to be in charge of it. So it's going to be IBL with in-service teachers and 3-hour problem sessions. So that's hopefully going to spread the message to local school districts a bit. So she's also, together with some people from U of M Dearborn, going to work on a regional conference for math content instructors. So they will be coming from all possible places, from community colleges, from other campuses of University of Michigan, other schools possibly. And if you're interested, maybe you can let her know. I mean, I know there are several people here from Michigan and nearby places. And so it's a one-day workshop to discuss math content courses, in particular IBL-related activities. And hopefully there will be a building of a community between colleges and a networking between the institution that's going to happen. Okay? And maybe this kind of thing hopefully will be a model for things that the centers and maybe other places too can do in their own areas. Okay? And I think the question has come up at this workshop and other workshops, what about community colleges? I think this can hopefully be something that can be of wider use to people. In connection to that, I would also say this. I mean, over the last year, we've had several visitors to our IBL center from the outside. And we've also had, personal contacts with people in other places, which in the end has led to those people starting up IBL at their place and starting courses and whatnot. So anyhow, I would like to encourage people to think about visiting IBL centers. I think one of the most important things to do, it's actually the thing which, I came to this, I was an old guy already, I hadn't done IBL, so I had to be convinced that this was a good thing. And one of the things that really convinced me was to observe IBL classes. And I think if you can do this, and you can actually see what happens in an IBL class and how you do it, I mean, you hear the descriptions here, but to actually see it, at least on video or something like this, that's so much more powerful, and you get a much better idea of what to actually do in the classes. So I would encourage people to go contact maybe an IBL center or some other place that has a lot of IBL activities, to go and visit, maybe sit in a class, talk to the instructors, maybe get some materials from them. Go do it, okay? If you're interested in Michigan, contact me. If you don't remember my name, look at IBL Michigan, and somewhere in here I'm the director, so you can find me. I sometimes answer email. So in this connection, we are also hoping to have sort of, this is not clear it's going to happen, so I'm not going to promise, but we're hoping to have a semester or possibly even year-long visiting professorship. So we'll see how that goes. But again, if you're interested, let me know. I have a deep fundamental truth of mathematics to proclaim. 4 is 2 plus 2, right? 4 credit hours can be split into 2 credit hours for lecturing and 2 credit hours for recitation session, or, you may call them in a fancy name, call them labs or something like this. So we are going to experiment, and maybe it's something to think about for other people. We're going to experiment with some large calculus classes, vector calculus classes. Our standard calculus classes are all small classes. They're all semi-IBL, whatever you want to call it. But so anyhow, we're going to work with our vector calculus classes, and we're going to hopefully bring them to this format, 2 lectures, 2 lab sessions. In the lab sessions, the students are going to work really in groups on problems, etc. So it's going to be very IBL in those 2 hours. We're going to try a similar thing with linear algebra as an experiment. So again, 4 is 2 plus 2. Our linear algebra course, standard linear algebra course, is a 4-credit class. For various reasons, we actually don't want to completely convert this into an IBL class. Having to do with class size. 35 students, hard to do an IBL class with. But maybe you can, do it in this fashion. Okay. some of this, especially vector calculus class, comes actually, some of the money that will be used to do this comes actually from a wider grant that the University of Michigan got. And so this is a completely different direction in which to build on IBL or future of IBL, maybe not necessarily only in math, but maybe in other areas, physics, chemistry, biology, engineering. So maybe your friends in other departments call it something else, discovery learning or evidence-based learning or whatever the current buzzword is. I don't know all these buzzwords. But they may be very amenable to doing things with you and building on it, and there are opportunities out there from NSF, like the wider grants, to actually get started and make changes. So that may be another interesting path towards building on IBL. So, I want to say, I'm out of time?
Just about.
Just about. Okay, let me make this brief. Training. We've done a lot of training, just like Chicago. Postdocs, our own faculty, grad students, undergraduates, okay? We have a lot of undergraduates who serve as assistants in our classes, besides, helping out with some office hours grading. They actually come to class, we get the experience of IBL class. In part, I'm mentioning these because these are people that are coming forward, and maybe you want to do something similar at your place, or maybe you want to hire these people. These are well trained. So training is one of the really important things, I think, in the future for the IBL centers. It's one of the main things we want to do. Let me finish here, since time's up. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ralph. I mean, one of the things that he touched upon, and also the others, is the centers have been involved largely with NSF funding, but also funding from EAF in terms of sponsoring workshops that have been held each summer for the last 4 or 5 summers. It was maybe, I guess, 20, 30 people at each of the workshops in order the use of IBL, and then follow-up. The next person is Monica Mendoza from the University of California, Santa Barbara.
So I just want to talk a little bit about the calculus courses, the IBL calculus courses at our campus, before I talk about the work that I do. At our campus, we currently offer IBL differential calculus, vector calculus, and linear algebra courses, and these are led by Elizabeth Thorne. And we offer real analysis and complex analysis classes that are IBL-based. In addition to this, we also offer IBL courses for pre-service teachers on the elementary and secondary track. And so Bill Jacob, the director of the center, he's not here and I'm here on his behalf, but he's spent over 20 years offering professional development to the local districts for in-service teachers. And so this is what we did last week. So Santa Barbara Unified School District, it's 11 schools, probably about over 3,000 students. And what they did is they organized a conference type workshop during the summer. It was 5 days, STEM focused. And so they invited us to offer these workshops for teachers. Well, I said that I think folks are tired of hearing me talk. I want the teachers. I want to collaborate with teachers and see what they do. And so, that's that question there is what happens when math coach steps aside. And so that image on the left is the template that I gave the teachers, and we had 5 of these courses. So the objective for these is we wanted to build teacher leadership and inform our future work. And so the topics there were on differentiation, math progressions, growth and development, and mathematical models infused with language development. And so the course sessions, what these teachers did was very interesting. And so as Mike Starbird mentioned yesterday at his talk, Right Time, Right Place, the teachers brought to the board, as the students do in the IBL classes, they brought to the board what they personally know, and it was really nice. And so giving them this template, the courses were very informative and collaborative and interactive. The goal, just to talk about the goal of our center, we're going to continue to increase our partnership with the with the district, and this summer we're offering teacher leadership workshops, because since I've been with the center now for 6 years, and schools have partnered with us, and so we have to take it to the next level. They come in, we are working with them for some time, and so what happens next? Well, we want to build teacher leadership. And so this summer, we're offering teacher leadership workshops for these teachers. And then during the academic year, we've also identified 3 main categories. So now, as opposed to originally what we used to do was just grade level workshops, we're now doing full staff development workshops, grade level workshops, and then cross grade level workshops. And this is really nice. What we're finding, the teachers are having a great time in these workshops, collaborating, looking at students' work, and it's a really nice time for them to really get a chance to, how you say, muck around with the IBL math on their own before they attempt it in the classroom. And so that's pretty much what we're doing. This is the website there. I'm going to post the PowerPoints that the teachers prepared if you're interested in looking at that in the next week on our website. Thank you.
The fourth person I would call upon would be Mike Starbird, but unfortunately, Mike had to return to Austin this morning, and so he's not here. You heard him last night, and in fact, I guess he gave several presentations yesterday. But the fourth center is at the University of Texas, Austin, and it has been doing many of the things similar to what you've just heard. I mean, one of the things they've been working on over the last 2 or 3 years, in fact, involves something that you've again heard, is about how to use IBL in calculus. And one of the challenges is that at many universities, calculus is taught in large sections. So how does one go about doing that? Michigan sort of pioneered the way, at least among the 4 universities here, as to teaching calculus using IBL, or using at least some aspects of IBL. Texas has been doing this, as has Santa Barbara and of course Chicago also. These centers have been in place, as I said now, for about 10 years. And one of the purposes of the centers was to decide to show what one could do if, in fact, you had a commitment at a university, the whole department, or at least a part of the department, to increasing using IBL techniques and increasing it. And I think these have demonstrated this. They've also been laboratories as far as assessment and evaluation. And as I said, this has been extremely useful. One of the things we've decided and the overall goal of all of this has been to try to provide a national framework for people like yourselves, colleges, universities, faculty all over the place, in order to support them in the use of IBL, both in terms of techniques, the theory behind it, the justification for it, the arguments as to why it's successful, and workshops and a whole lot of other practices. One of the things we realized about 3 years ago is we needed some way to sort of tie all this together. And one of the things that was created then is what is called ABLE, AIBL. It occurred to me, in fact, if we'd have called that the National Academy, INABLE is probably a better description of what this is intended to do. Let me call upon Stan Yoshinobu to talk about it.
All right, so it's great to hear from the 3 IBL centers and to see what they're doing, the kinds of projects that you might be interested in. They're providing some nice examples. What I want to talk about is your IBL future, right? Your classes, your department, and the supports that are available for you. So what is AIBL? So AIBL is an organization that's focused on IBL community building. So our focus is on you, to help you answer the questions that you have about how to use IBL in your situation. So you have, every institution is different, right? You have big classes, small classes, commuter students, etc. You know, calculus is different than number theory. So how do you deal with that? And then there are courses for future elementary school teachers, and they have their own needs. So our organization is here to help you grapple with those questions and how to grade and how to assess and call on students. And so we're here to support you. I'd like to highlight a few of the programs that we have at AIBL that are available to all of you here in the audience. So the first one is the mentor program. So the mentor program is done in several ways. You can have a one-on-one mentor. Your mentoring might be part of an IBL workshop cohort, or we can set up a regional mentor group, and we have a listserv that can help you. So we can set this all up for you. So we have, you may have noticed there's a table in the back, and we also have, I want to mention Kayleen Wakeman and Natalie LaRosa. They're in the blue shirts. We're wearing our AIBL polos today. We also have Dana Ernst, he's over there, and Angie Hodge. So they're AIBL Special Projects Coordinators, and they're here to also answer your questions and also to help you collect these mentor request forms. So if you want a mentor, fill one of these out, get it to us, and we'll try to set up a mentor for you while you're at this conference. We'll try our best to make that happen. So there's that. So get one of these. They're available. The other programs that we have a small grants program. So we have a limited number of small grants that you can apply for. The next cycle is in September. So it's due, proposals are due in September. The guidelines are on our webpage, so check that out. You can get course release, or you can get summer salary for projects that start in 2015. So we can't support anything new for the fall, but for spring, next academic year, or fall of the following academic year, fall 2015, we can support you, help you get going on a course. We also offer IBL workshops. These are week-long workshops. We run all day, 4 days, all day, and you'll have a whole year of support. So these are great opportunities to really get going, pick a target course, learn the skills and practices you need to learn to use IBL, and then we can help you implement that in a subsequent term. Other things, visiting speakers. We do help with travel, so if you want to visit Ralph at Michigan, he's invited all of you, apparently, just a few minutes ago, so you're all welcome to go. We can help with, sorry, we can help with some of the travel costs there, so let us know. And if you forget Ralph's email address, because he was worried that you may not, you can do a Google search, or you can go to our website, let us know, and I can get you in contact with him. So if you walk away with anything, walk away with our website address, so find that at inquirybasedlearning.org, and that's the hub. So you can get your information, you can get my contact info, and I can get you in contact with whoever you want to go and visit or see or information. Okay, it's a modern world now, so we're also on social networking. We're on Facebook, we post things there, so follow us. There's an IBL blog, so I write, and I also ask guest writers to write and share information. We have videos on our AIBL YouTube channel, so every presentation here at the conference is going to be on YouTube. You can watch a session that you missed. So we have all these parallel sessions. Maybe you're debating, should I go see this or that? Well, you can see it all. So we'll have those available probably sometime in fall. And there's also a Google Plus community that Dana started, and so you can join us on Google Plus, and there's a lively community out there. Let's see, David Clark, he's over there. Could you stand up real quick and let us know? The reason why I want you to stand up is the Journal of Inquiry-Based Learning in Mathematics, or jiblm.org. People ask, where do I get course materials? So David's your man, so go talk to him. You can get course materials that have been peer-reviewed. There are also non-reviewed articles out there as notes, sorry. These are course materials that you can also have access to. And if you're interested, you teach a course and it's a new course, or someone has not developed course materials for that course before, or it's a different take, you can get that published in a peer review in the Journal of Inquiry-Based Learning in Mathematics. So there's an outlet for your work here too, for publication. We want to mention one thing. We are thinking about starting a Sigma IBL, and we're almost surely going forward with this. And so I'm just throwing this out there to MAA members here, people who are interested. You know, we would like to talk to you, see if you're interested. How should we set this up? We need the community to come together to get this going. So during the conference, please talk to me or talk to one of the AIBL folks, or Okay, great. So then, and then Victor, talk to Victor Piercy. He's heading this up. Thank you for volunteering to be chair of the committee on forming the Sigma IBL. Really appreciate it.
What a Sigma is.
Yes, well, he'll talk about it, yes. Okay, so we'll get that going. All right, so we are going to get together on that. So great. Thank you, Victor, for stepping up. I'm going to end with a little note about IBL. So the growth mindset, that's sort of, that's making the rounds the last few years about the growth mindset for students and how that's so important. And I also want to share the growth mindset for teachers. And so this is how I want to share this. So a traditional way that we talk about our students is how intelligent are my students? And what I like to do is to highlight those last three words. So I'll highlight them in blue, and then shift them over and say, how are my students intelligent? And to use that as the basis for forming your ideas about teaching and how to plan your courses. So I'll stop there. So please join AIBL, and thank you very much.
As I said, these efforts are all combined together to try to provide a national framework for all of you to do, as Stan indicated, to do IBL at your institution, either by yourself or in collaboration with others. One of the other things we started at this meeting for the first time was we had a workshop on Wednesday morning having to do with, was it Wednesday or, no, Thursday, I guess, Wednesday morning, having to do with the question of obtaining grant support or obtaining financial support for your efforts. In other words, it's not necessary to, in fact, have money in order to do IBL, as most of you know, because, in fact, there hasn't been that much money. But, of course, if one can identify something that is new or unique or that people are interested in, or if you can enlarge the group of people at your college or university doing IBL by adding another person or something like this, it would certainly be useful. Stan just indicated this effort to try to create the community. That's what our overall goal, to a large extent, is to create or to foster this community and to provide whatever support is needed or we're able to give. What I'm going to do, yes, I'm sorry, and there's one thing in the back also out among the papers. There's a piece of paper, I'm sorry, a small pamphlet, several pages, which is called, it starts out, an invitation. Now, what it does is simply summarizes a lot of what was being said at this meeting in terms of the centers, the assessment, the ABLE, and all these other activities. And it could be useful for you. First of all, it does contain some of the information about websites and other addresses. But it also, if you were going to try to find and get information either from your department, or your university or college, or from somebody else, it allows you to show that, in fact, what your effort is part of a national effort, and so often that tends to be useful. Anyway, thank you very much for listening to all this. What I'm going to do now is ask if there are any questions, and if you can either direct them to me or to any of the people that are up here.
I'm Elizabeth Thorin. I'm at UCSB, and I just want to extend Ralph's invitation. If anybody of you guys want to come visit UCSB and sit in on a class, I will do my best to help you out.
I think what ABLE needs to do is buy a fleet of buses, and we'll go from center to center.
That's a great idea.
Any other questions or invitations or comments?
Okay, I'm Victor Piercy from Ferris State University. My question is there an overall vision for where the future of IBL is going over the next, say, 10 to 15 years, or any other time period?
Well, I'm not sure that there's one vision of where it should go. I mean, as Stan indicated, to a large extent, the future of IBL rests with you and your colleagues around the country. What we can do is try to help and assist and foster development in certain directions. But the real question as to what happens with IBL depends upon people like yourselves using it, developing it, having it grow, having it flourish. And of course, one of the great things, as you've heard here in this sort of training is concerned, if you have an undergraduate who is taking courses with IBL, often the person will then, that will persist. The person will use it or seek it out in the graduate school, and then when that person takes a position, can teach himself. So in fact, So I think from my personal point of view, the future vision for IBL is that it will be one way of teaching mathematics, which is both respected and used by a substantial, perhaps minority or a substantial number of people at colleges and universities across the country, and indeed, in fact, even in K through 12, because in fact, a lot of activity there. There's the You Teach program, something we didn't touch upon a lot, but in these pre-service courses at most of these university centers, important courses are the teacher preparation courses, and all of them feature IBL as a prominent method of teaching. So I don't know if anybody else would like to offer their vision as to IBL in the future.
Hi, Allegra Reiber, University of Denver. I'm curious what you've observed about the way the national culture outside of the academy has changed in their perspective with IBL. We hear sometimes that parental perspectives or the perspectives of children before they make their way into college can really impact how receptive students are to this model. Are we still trying to convert people, or is this becoming what's expected?
Well, I think the answer is yes, yes. I think it is becoming more respected. I mean, one of the reasons, in fact, initially for reaching out to prestigious research universities was, in fact, to create IBL centers at places where people couldn't doubt or question the authenticity or the level of these programs. On the other hand, I think it is still the case that when a student, especially if one person at a college or a university is using IBL, and a student wanders in and doesn't understand what he or she is getting themselves into, one's going to have to sell it or convince them or make arrangements with it. That's one of the reasons why it's, I think, very useful, no matter how small your college, if you've got at least a colleague who's also doing it for a whole lot of reasons. But so, as I said, I think the answer is yes. We're still trying to convert people, and I think the assessment and the evaluation studies, not just by us, not just by Sandra Larson, but by other people, are validating this as an approach. But we're also finding that more and more people, as was pointed out, at several of these centers, when they started out, the senior faculty outside of the program basically said, well, you can do that if you want to, but I'm not going to. That's been turning around the last few years, as John Bowler indicated, Chicago and Ralph at Michigan and other places. Other senior faculty, in fact, are now using IBL and are intrigued in large part by the results. And I think that's the best we demonstrate why it's useful by its effectiveness. Other questions?
Ron, can I jump in real quick?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, I'd like to add on to the response that I think the perception of IBL is generally becoming more favorable, but it's not uniform. I mean, there are different pockets where, it's more or less acceptable. I think one of the things that we need to do is to also help you make the case if you're teaching, for instance, and you're in a department, it depends on what the department environment is. We can help you sort of make the case, or to at least, you can justify through various means why you're doing what you're doing. So that's one level. Another level, like the K-12 level, that's a whole other animal. And there isn't a simple answer there. It's a big system. But I think generally, I'm seeing that there's more acceptance of active learning. The evidence is supporting it. And I would like to say that the big problem that we need to tackle, in my mind, is implementation. Faithful implementation of good IBL practices. And if we do a good job, I think that's a huge way to market what we're doing, in the sense that you can say, look, it's working, people like it, the students are enjoying it, they're having a good time, they're succeeding. So this is where I think a lot of our energy should be directed.
And jumping into IBL without support or without experience or without some training is a very risky business. That's just one of the reasons we've been trying to provide as many of the workshops as possible, and why meetings like this, such as the Legacy meeting, provides that kind of information also. Other questions?
Yeah. This is B.A. Samaranayak from Missouri University of Science and Technology. I am also the Director of Graduate Studies and in charge of training graduate students. I think the one way of propagating the idea of IBL is to train the graduate students, the TAs, who are going to be professors and instructors later on. Are there any work done on that?
Yeah, the answer is yes. In fact, anybody here want to take in? I mean, as indicated in the reports that you've got, that at the 4 centers that happens because almost all the IBL courses involve the use of TAs and graduate students. So, in fact, they have to be trained, and they have to not only be trained but experienced in IBL before they get out. But there are, I think, other efforts that we've been doing. There was a 5th grant originally, which involved Harvard, and Harvard, in fact, has directed a lot of its energies toward the training of graduate students in that direction. But we could always use more.
Ron, I'll follow up.
Yes, go ahead.
So, yeah, I mean, partly, just to elaborate a little bit, partly through the generosity of EAF to support us as a center, but we are able to have graduate student assistance in many of our IBL courses. And in fact, that's very intentional on our part for several reasons. One, we like having a second expert set of eyes in the room because we're working with a fairly advanced set of students in fairly advanced material. These are not courses for liberal arts students for the most part. These are math major courses. And so it's very helpful to us to have a second set of eyes in the room, to be that second expert, to catch that extra comment, to hear that really insightful question, to help generate that IBL type discussion, even when a student is the one at the board. But it's also for the exact purpose of then training that graduate student to be an IBL practitioner, him or herself. And now maybe they come on and do a course with us, or maybe they go on to their next position and do that. While some of my co-panelists were speaking, I did a little quick tally. Over the 10 years that we've been supported as a center, we've trained 50 graduate students this way. So yes, I mean, I think, and a lot of them are going off to do postdocs at places where they're able to use IBL in full courses. So.
In the pamphlet, let me just say one thing. In the pamphlet I mentioned back there called an invitation, there's a summary of numbers of people that are impacted. And I think the number of graduate students and postdocs that have gone through the 4 centers over the 10 years, it's several hundred, I guess 500 or something like this. And not all of them, of course, are out teaching, but a very large percentage of them are. Sorry, go ahead.
Hi. So I also want to emphasize the use of undergraduate assistance in these courses. So we've been doing it. I think Chicago's been doing it. I don't know about the other centers so much. But these are some of our top undergraduate students who will go on to graduate programs in mathematics or nearby fields, typically mathematics. They are fantastic people in the sense that they have been growing up, so to speak, with the use of IBL in the classroom. They saw themselves as students, they helped out as assistants, maybe they go to a place where they can help out as graduate students in this way, then maybe postdocs and so on. So I think the chain of events is set up to really help do this, and I think it's great.
Great. And then I'll add on that I believe we have the pieces to put together an IBL TA training program. I mean, we've done enough work in professional development that I think we can get something like that going. So ideas that come to mind are, should there be a national effort on that? I think, that's something that should be discussed. But I think we have the pieces that we can take off the shelf to start something, like a version 1.0 TA training. Because you're right, this is the time to get the training in when they're at the beginning of their career. So I really appreciate that comment. So thank you for bringing that up.
I think a lot of the people involved in the workshops that you've sponsored, in fact, are very young people, very near the start of their careers. Well, if not, thank you all very much.